Good evening. We've had a closed session, so we've already had our call to order. I'd like to begin now with the superintendent comments.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to extend my thanks to the Muslim Center of Greater Princeton, who hosted 13 members of the administration today for a visit and tour of their brand new facility. Special thanks to Tahir Zafar for his being a host to us. As many know, the groundbreaking and opening was last week, but it happened to be during High School North's graduation, so the administration was not able to attend. They extended a special welcome to us today, and we were grateful for that opportunity. Also want to note special congratulations to our High School North boys 4x1 mile team, who were the named national champions, placing first in the nation a week ago. They placed with a time of 17 minutes, 19 seconds, number 3 in state history, number 19 in U.S. history, fastest time, and it's the fastest time for a New Jersey track team in 45 years. So congratulations to the High School North track team and the 4x1 mile team. Just for a point of public knowledge, timelines coming up this summer, there's 2 important votes that will happen at some time in August at the board meeting. We're looking at that board date just for availability of the membership. But 2 things hanging out there is the Town Center addition. So we will be going out to bid on Town Center. That's moving separate and apart than the referendum. So Town Center could be voted on for the award at the August meeting, as well as the referendum question. This is not the referendum itself, but this is the right to bring forward the question in November. The reason for an August vote is that by law, you must bring a question forward by 60 days in advance of the public ballot being set. So that 60 days must be sent to the prior to, that would be just prior to the November 6th or November 7th election this year. We would miss the September 11th board meeting. As such, we would have to do it in August with a special vote, or excuse me, with a vote, not a special vote, with a vote. All that vote does, it would be the board's up and down vote whether or not to bring the referendum question to the public in November. So that's what the board would be voting on. And again, I know there's always a concern about sneaking things through in the summertime, so I'll make sure we're out front on that. It's not the first time I've talked about this, but again, want to make sure the public is aware. And then just for the knowledge of the community, the Maurice Hawk has officially started with some preparations. You'll see a lot of work in the next couple days as the job site is now officially underway, and you'll start seeing a lot of construction activity at Maurice Hawk Elementary School. Thank you.
Okay, that'll bring us to our first opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes. All statements should be directed to the presiding officer, and the public comment period will be limited to 60 minutes. Hold on.
Nope. Is it on?
Oh, there you go.
Okay. My name is Joy Horton, and I live at 10 Hopkins Court in Plainsboro. I would like to thank the Superintendent, Dr. David Adderhall, Principal Jonathan Dauber of High School South, both Chief Garofalo and Lieutenant Mark Lee of West Windsor Police Department, and Chief Guy Armour and Lieutenant Fred Tavener of Plainsboro Police Department for meeting with several officers of the African American Parent Support Group for over 2.5 hours on Monday, June 18th. During that time, we discussed our concerns surrounding the deployment of Class 3 special law enforcement officers in the West Windsor-Plainsboro schools. We discussed concerns from the community regarding the role officers will play in the schools, what type of training the officers will have, and the hiring and disciplinary processes. We had an honest dialogue during the meeting about how some members of the African American community view the police and also our concerns about unconscious bias incidents against our children. Our sons, our daughters, our fathers, and our mothers are concerned about how will our children be treated. We recently conducted a survey and gathered some of the community responses, which was later shared with the school board, superintendent, and other officials, and we hope that data gave you some insight, helped you with understanding some of the community's concerns, and helped you with your decision-making process. The link to our survey as well as the community responses can be found on our website, www.aapsg.weebly.com. African Americans are not a monolith, and I cannot speak for all members of our community. We have indicated that the community has expressed some concerns, which we raised and shared with the appropriate parties. Our hope is that you will take our concerns to heart, ensure that certain policies and procedures are put in place to prevent any unconscious or conscious bias incidents. Ensure that there is transparency as it relates to notifying the public regarding any incidents, and that the special law enforcement officers will be held to the highest standards of the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jyotika Bari, 31 Grayland Drive, Princeton. I want to start by saying that I'm here to make comments as a parent and not as a Westminster Councilwoman. I want to thank Dr. Adderhold and Lieutenant Lee for being at the council meeting yesterday and patiently answering the questions posed by council members. I understand there are parents with specific and valid concerns regarding having police officers in our schools. However, they're already present in our schools practically every day. In that sense, this is not really anything new. It is just a more permanent arrangement. The safety of our school kids and staff is of paramount importance, and this is an empowering initiative from that standpoint. As a parent, I have full confidence in our police force and the school administration that they will make the right decisions with respect to the implementation of this program. Thank you for having a long and meaningful discussion on this matter. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. That brings us to committee reports, administration and facilities.
The Administration and Facilities Committee met on Tuesday, June 18th. The committee discussed and supports the authorization of the fourth year of a 5-year parking license agreement with the trustees of the First Presbyterian Church of Plainsboro to assist with parking needs at Wyckoff School. We reviewed 3 new job descriptions. First, we support the creation of a public information officer position to enhance and improve the district's communication with the community. This position is budget neutral as it replaces a vacant administrative assistant position in the business office. Next, we reviewed the job description for a special education instructional assistant / bus driver, which has been created based on student need. This new job description will facilitate the transportation of students with special needs to job placement activities for community-based instruction. And third, in discussing our concerns with the existing vendor for Eyes on the Door, the committee supports discontinuing the outsourcing of security personnel and replacing that with the district hiring of school security officers. That's Eyes on the Door. We had a general discussion about our policy manual, and anyone who has looked up policy on the district website knows that it's a little confusing and there are links to old and new policies. So the plan is to reconcile the old and new policies with a goal of having just one link to current board policy in the near future. Administration presented the school-based counseling proposals from Rutgers UBHC and High Focus Centers, and the committee supports the recommendation to move forward with Rutgers UBHC. Finally, the committee reviewed the merit goals of David Adderhold and Gerard Dalton and supports the submission for approval to the Mercer County Executive Superintendent. The A&F committee will next meet on Tuesday, July 17th.
Thank you. Any A&F questions? Finance?
The Finance Committee met on June 18th. The committee reviewed the proposed agenda items. Staff reported on the Advocate May inspection report. The report showed that 8 of the 10 schools showed improvement. The district and Aramark have implemented several processes to improve performance, and Aramark's performance has shown improvement. The district generated 118 solar renewable energy credits in the last 6 months, which we will be selling. Staff has sent information to the auditors to begin the 2017-18 audit process, and year-end procedures have begun in preparation for the audit. The district is gearing up for summer capital projects. Planning meetings have taken place on the following projects: South and North turf fields and track, High School South pool heater generator replacement, the Wyckoff gym floor replacement, roof restoration for Grover and High School North, CMS bus lane improvement, hot construction, town center construction, boiler alarm installation throughout the district, painting throughout the district, classroom renovations, and local government energy audit and ESET. The committee also discussed future committee meeting dates. The administration discussed 3 proposals for communications regarding the referendum. The administration recommends, and the committee agrees, to approve the print and mail portion of the least expensive proposal at a total cost of $12,205. The administration will handle the other aspects of communications regarding the referendum. The administration has met with 4 vendors to discuss security and communication equipment upgrades, including classroom phones, paging intercoms, door access, visitor access, panic alarm, strobe lights, and voice emergency messaging. The committee supported the administration continuing to pursue these improvements. Eyes on the door. The administration is not satisfied with the performance of the current Eyes on the Door contractor. It appears that the salary the contractor is offering isn't sufficient to obtain quality staff. The alternative is to bring the program in-house using part-time experienced individuals. This would entail paying a better wage and would cost more. That additional cost can be offset by charging the community ed program for some of the security costs associated with their after-school programs. The committee discussed the scheduling of security staff versus Class 3 officers. The committee discussed the draft shared services agreement for Class 3 officers. There were many questions because we have a lawyer on our committee, which will be passed on to the attorney for review. And the committee will next meet on July 17th.
Thank you. Any questions on the finance report? Okay, that brings us to administration, and I'm going to call items 4 and 5 separately. Those are the shared service agreements with the townships. For people who don't know the lingo, that's to set up an agreement with the townships to provide the special law enforcement Class 3 officers to the school. Both agreements are identical except for the names of the town and which mayor signs them. So we're going to carry that as one vote. Could I have a motion on that? Michele and Rachel. Before I open it up to discussion on the board, I just want to add that it's a difficult topic. There are certainly many opinions on it, and there's no guiding right or absolute right or wrong answer. And I've said this in other situations. Reasonable people can disagree. We're going to do what each member thinks is best and hope for the best as we go forward. I'll open it up for discussion now. You want to?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'd like to know, I think we all realize that the cost per year will be somewhere around $500,000 to pay the officers. I'm wondering, what is the training cost per year?
That's inclusive of the training cost. So we built in 40 hours.
I don't think so, because in the curriculum committee, we did a calculation based on $30 per hour per officer, and we came out with $500,000. That did not include any training.
Contract, specifically in the shared service agreement, talks about $485,000 per community. So that's inclusive of officers on both sides. And that does include in the budget that was provided to the Board of Education. That does include training hours of 60 hours per officer built into the budget. The officer's weekly calculation was calculated at 30 hours as well, weekly, but due to the Affordable Care Act, we have to calculate at 29 hours to assure that there's not any kind of Affordable Care Act contribution or concern. So there's salary for 8 officers at 30 hours is $288,000 if everyone worked maximum number of hours. There's over $14,000 built in for the training budget just for the hours alone. Then there's the SRO training rates as well built in and some additional costs.
So the training in the budget is 14,000
For the hours, for
the 60 hours
for each officer.
per officer?
Correct.
Okay, and we're adding security vestibules to every school at a cost of millions of dollars, and we're adding possibly more video cameras, door locks, and what else are we adding security-wise?
So if you have a security vestibule, you're also going to have some kind of security technology to do some form of identification check. You're going to look at classroom phones. You're going to look at intercom systems. You're going to look at strobe lights.
What does a strobe light do?
Well, if a school was to go into lockdown and just hypothetically you're sitting in an orchestra classroom at Millstone River and there's 200 4th and 5th graders on stage, you're not going to hear the intercom. So a strobe light would provide a warning signal.
It's like an alarm.
It's a flashing
Visual
light. It's a
alert.
visual flashing light for big common spaces. There's also a current provision standing in the Assembly and the Senate for the potential requirement for school districts to have some kind of visual light by the roadside to also then inform the public that there's some kind of lockdown or security matter underway so individuals don't enter into the building. You're also talking about hallways. So for instance, if you're eating lunch at High School North and the school was to go into lockdown during lunchtime with 1,600 or 1,400 students eating at North or South, the chances of you hearing the intercom are slim to none. So it's those kind of measures that would go into place. You're also talking about door hardware for locks, video technology for video coverage throughout our buildings. And as the board is well aware, there's been opportunity where that video that we currently have has come in handy. But we know we have 100% coverage at any of our buildings, let alone 50% coverage.
Okay, in Union, New Jersey, the police officers do a park and walk to check on the schools. So Union Sergeant Anthony Cavello sends Union police officers to township schools on a random basis. They enter schools on their posts randomly at different times during the day. In Boston, the officers in the school are prohibited from carrying guns. In New York City, the use of police officers in schools waned in the 1990s, and this spring, the mayor dismissed the last officers, so there are now no police officers in New York City schools. They are using community policing to protect the students.
What does that mean, community policing to protect?
Well, it's similar to the what Union, New Jersey is doing, where they walk randomly into schools. We also heard a lot of public comments at the town council meeting last night, where there are studies saying that there is absolutely no proof that having armed Class 3 officers in schools is effective in any way. So my position is that we are spending millions and millions of dollars. Just having a security vestibule at the front of every school is a huge increase in security for our schools. Far more security than we've ever had before. And the addition of all these other things is also very expensive and more security. So if we're going to spend all this money, why don't we do those things first and then see what the result is, see if everyone's satisfied with that, see if it works well for our schools before we jump to this next very expensive, very invasive step of having police officers in the building at all times. I think we should do this on a step basis and not just plunge ahead with everything with no proof that this would actually be effective at all.
Thank you. Anyone else want to make a comment?
Okay. I spent a fair amount of time talking to people and thinking about the Class 3 officer issue. From talking to people, there's no clear consensus in our community. Our community is divided on this issue. I've heard from people who are passionately in favor, passionately opposed, and in the middle. One person told me he was opposed, but he wouldn't be mad at me if we did it. So that's nice. You know, if you look at the past, there are cases when school resource officers have helped shorten an incident, and there are cases when they have not. It's hard to balance the cost in terms of both money and the school environment against the risks. And the rate of school shootings, while still very low, has been rapidly accelerating. So you can't really look to the past 10 or 15 years to reach any conclusions, because the last year or two doesn't look like the 10, 15 years that came before it. The risks seem highest in the high schools and the middle schools. You know, I trust our administration, and they talk about there are many benefits to having our officers in the schools. I trust the West Windsor Police to be able to do this as well as it can be done. I've gone from my initial reaction, which I don't know if Dave knew was no way, to yes for the high schools and probably for the middle schools, but I still can't see it for the elementary schools. We have an obligation to provide security for our students and staff, but we also need to be fiscally responsible. I would hope that we could focus on the high schools first, where I think the risks and the needs are higher. I just feel like there has to be a more cost-effective way to do security at the elementary schools rather than having both eyes on the door and police officers. I feel like there's a better way that we could approach doing that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. I want to just add that I have huge respect for the West Windsor Police and their work on this issue, and full confidence that if they were in the schools, they would do it in the best possible way. But I just don't think that it's a wise idea to do this now. And from the people I have spoken to, it's overwhelmingly the community is against this. There's a small minority who is for it, but almost by a huge, huge discrepancy, most people I talked to are not in favor of this.
Now Michelle's going to speak.
I wish that we did not have to consider the hiring of police officers in our schools. It makes me incredibly sad that there is even one parent who sent a child to school in the morning who didn't come home in the afternoon. It makes me incredibly sad that ensuring safety and security in our schools has required so much money and conversation. But this is the new normal. Safety and security must be paramount in all school board considerations. Now, our school board, you may not realize this, but our school board has been having conversations about police in schools for as long as I can remember. In the aftermath of Sandy Hook, I was adamant in my position. It was no way. I distinctly remember telling Dr. Adderhold, no way do I want to see police in our schools. But that was 5 years ago, and my position has evolved. Times have changed. The violence and subsequent news stories have continued. Laws have adjusted to meet new needs. And I have a better understanding of the role of a Class 3 officer in our schools. The shared service agreement that appears on tonight's agenda is neither reactionary nor impulsive. It really has been years in the making. My support for the hiring of Class 3 officers developed over time, and for the record, became solidified when the board had a lengthy and in-depth discussion on this topic at our retreat last December, which was 2 months before the incident in Parkland. I appreciate the time, thought, and research invested by our superintendent and law enforcement officials in coming to this recommendation, and I thank them for addressing anticipated concerns as best that they can. I know that they are fully committed to hiring and training the best candidates in these roles. I also appreciate the emails, texts, phone calls, and conversations that I have had with members of the community on all sides of this issue. Reasonable minds will disagree, but listening and understanding to the concerns of all can only help in making better decisions. This is not a vote about guns. When I vote yes on the shared service agreement tonight, I'm voting for community policing, relationship building, and threat deterrence. I'm voting to hire people who have years of experience and training in the protection of diverse communities. I'm voting to encourage a culture of see something, say something to a trusted adult. I'm voting to reduce response time, assist in conflict resolution, promote safety, and hopefully prevent any potential dangerous situation. I'm voting to have professionals help us in our crisis management and emergency preparedness. And I'm voting to hire the very people that we would call in the event of an emergency. As we consider all options to ensure that teachers and staff can do what they're hired to do so that students can safely grow, learn, and thrive in WWP, I believe the hiring of Class 3 officers is the insurance policy that we need. I hope it never happens, and I hope we never need it. But in the event of a crisis in any one of our schools, I don't want to look back and wonder what we could have done to ensure a better outcome.
Thank you. Anyone else?
A couple things I wanted to share. As Michele has said, for the past few months, the board has been discussing the possibility of having Class 3 officers in the schools. And I've been reading information that community members have sent the board and been at many meetings and events in which I listened to residents give me their take on this topic. And I want to thank them for reaching out to us and to me in particular. And I want to thank the administration and both West Windsor and Plainsboro police departments for their really careful and thoughtful presentations and crafting of the shared service agreement. I just wanted to share a little bit of my own experience with the community policing in our schools and how this is shaping my vote. My children, as many of the other children in this district, have all experienced the DARE program in the 5th grade. For those who are unfamiliar with this program, the 5th graders at both upper elementary schools have police officers come to the school on a regular basis for several months and teach the kids about various safety topics, from bike safety, cyber safety, drug and alcohol, and all those things. The program ends with the DARE Splash, which is like a pool party run by the police department, by the police officers. A couple of years ago, my 5th grader at the time won the DARE culminating essay contest. And the reward for winning this contest was a special tour of the police station, a ride in the police car with me as the parent and one of my child's friends. This was an amazing experience. These two 5th graders had such a wonderful rapport with the DARE officer, and this is what community policing is about. I wish that we lived in a time in which we did not have to worry about mass shootings in schools. I wish that lockdowns and active shooter drills were not mandated by the state. But times have changed over the last 20 years, and I believe that our districts need to support community policing, not just for the unthinkable events that have happened in Parkland, Florida, or Santa Fe, Texas, or Sandy Hook in Connecticut, but for the more typical everyday occurrences for teaching students about safety and for building community. And that's why I'm going to be supporting this initiative.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to call the vote now.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Cheng.
Items 4 and 5.
Oh, you are voting on 4 and 5.
Only 4 and 5, right?
Okay,
Yes.
that was a no. Ms. Herts.
No.
Ms. Ho.
No.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Kaish.
Yes.
Mr. Fleres.
Yes.
5-3
Okay, thank you.
in favor.
I'll just add a little closing. There were a lot of comments made over the past, I think this really started getting discussed in March, between social media, between board meetings, at at the council meeting. What I would say is that it opened a lot of people's eyes of different concerns that people have. And in my mind, hopefully, the idea that it shows a need for community policing, that maybe people have different different perceptions of what will be going on both sides of the group, but certainly with the administration and the police. They see what the public says. It gave everybody an opportunity to speak. Maybe we'll all just listen to each other and be mindful of other people's thoughts as we go forward, other people's opinions, and hopefully we can make a success out of the future year. Okay, now the remaining administration items 1, 2, 3, and 6 to 13. Could I have a motion on that? Okay. When we vote, we do that. Could I have a motion on that? Isaac and Martin. Any questions on the remaining?
I have a question for Chris.
Okay.
On the report.
Harold, can you speak up? I can't hear.
I'm sorry, that we have a report.
Still in administration.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that.
Any other questions? Hearing none.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Herts.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes, except abstention on 13B.
Mhm. Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Cheng.
Yes.
Ms. Kaish.
Yes.
Mr. Fleres.
Yes. Okay, a curriculum. I have a motion on item 1. Dana and Carol. Any questions on the curriculum item or discussion? Chris?
We'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Kaish.
Yes.
Mr. Cheng. Ms. Herts.
Yes.
Mr. Fleres.
Yes. Thank you. Finance. I need a motion on item 1 through, where are we? 10. Louisa and Rachel. Any questions on the finance items?
I have a question. On this report about
Can't hear.
expense account adjustments,
Mhm.
what is this report doing? And you end up with a zero. But what?
Can't hear.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay. This report, I'm trying to understand what it's doing. Can you explain this to me?
That's showed to me. There's so many reports, and when they come out, sometimes the final report's different from anything else. There's transfers. The adjustments down to 0. The expense account adjustments, it's transfers to and from. Yeah, you gotta look at it. What you
It looks
see.
like the goal is to have a zero balance in each category. Is that right?
Now, what it would be is they were transferring it to somewhere else. If they were running it to 0, then that would be the person that's running that budget line. If they were reducing it to 0, they were transferring money to somewhere else in order to spend it to combine it to spend it somewhere else. So
Is that
if
what that shows?
yes. So if the line goes to 0, then it goes to 0.
It just seems like it's a miracle that it always goes to 0. So I'm wondering what's happening to
Mhm.
make that happen. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not going to spend the money, then you just transfer it to somewhere else? Is that?
Now, what it is we have site-based budgeting.
Okay.
So there's budget secretaries that work with the building principals. They can move money around as the year goes on where they see fit, where they need to move it to,
Okay.
if they want to order other items.
So that's what that shows?
Yeah, that's the net, meaning if you take so much from here and you move it there, the difference is 0, because you only move so much. Does that make sense?
Okay.
If you negative here, a positive there, the difference
Right.
is 0.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the finance?
We'll start
Vote.
with Ms. Juliana? Yes. Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield?
Yes.
Mr. Cheng? Ms. Herts?
Yes.
Ms. Ho?
Yes.
Ms. Kaish?
Yes.
And Mr. Fleres?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Personnel, items 1, 2, and 3, and the, I love this, the green personnel addendum?
And I have to point out one change.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, first we have the, I'm still calling roll. We'll make the correction when I'm done. So we have the green personnel addendum, the blue personnel addendum number 1,
Green, blue,
and
one,
the yellow personnel addendum number 2.
yellow, 2.
Could I have a motion on that, Louisa and Martin? And I think there's a correction on one of the items here, right?
Yes, they're on the white personnel agenda. On page 3, there's a staff member, Henry Surgent. Just cross that. He's rescinded. On page 3 of the white personnel agenda, we're going to rescind the appointment for that staff member, Henry Surgent. Just cross that off.
I'll call that, I'll point that out. Yeah. Also on,
Purple.
well, it's on the packet on our desk, on a table here, but from what we got in the pony, and as mentioned earlier, there's a change in the job description for the public information, oh, no, I'm sorry, the security officer. And it's
Number 3.
Number 3, there's an item in there that was added in, so you didn't see it from the pony, positively represents the school and provides general assistance / information to visitors. All right, that was something that was discussed in the closed session, just pointing out here for the record. Any questions on the personnel items?
I have a question. This public information officer, I don't know why we need this position at all. We already have Jerry Hutner, who seems to do a good job on that. So I don't see why we need another employee to do that. And obviously,
Yeah.
I don't think social media, we should be spending taxpayer dollars on someone to promote things on social media. Social media is not something we should be spending money on for the school district.
So for 9 years, I've sat in rooms with Board of Educations in which the board administration has been knocked for communication. And that knock comes from the fact that we communicate in a 20th century way in a 21st century. Parents and community members get their information right here. Right? They get through the phone and they get things pushed to them through different media platforms. Right now, our method of communication to our public is we put it on a website, you come find it, good luck. It's there. And the recognition has been that we need to do it differently. The Board of Education has raised concerns numerous times, as early as today, as late as today, about the way in which communication is done. That does not mean that Jerry doesn't do an excellent job. This is not about Jerry. Jerry does an excellent job. But it's a recognition that our society is shifting, the way we need to communicate with our public is different. Knowing that there'd be concern about raising a position, we also found a way to do it budget neutral by reducing an administrative assistant. And what we're saying is an administrative team, this is what we need in order to meet the expectations and the public demand regarding how we communicate. And we see it time and time again with concerns that have been raised by PTA and PTSA leadership, by athletic families and communities, by schools, around how we share information. So while members of the board may differ on this, there's a real recognition from the administration that you've asked us to do things differently, and we're asking you to give us the tools to do it differently. We're not asking you to raise additional dollars. We're going to do without a staff position so we can grow a staff position.
Any other questions on the personnel? You have the vote.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Cheng. Ms. Herts.
No on the public information officer, and yes on
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Ms. Kaish,
Yes.
and Mr. Fleres.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to acknowledge a retirement that we had just found out about this afternoon, or that I just found out about. Larry LaCastro will be retiring in August. He's served as the controller for 12 years in the district. I just realized at 12 years, I thought he'd been here for a lot longer. It just so happens he came about the same time I got elected to the board. And at the time, as a new board member, I was curious how finances worked and forever fielding a bunch of questions to him. Why about this? What does that line item mean? And I just realized that he was new to the district at the same time, and he probably knew the accounting inside out, but whatever the district was doing, it was new to him, so he's going to be missed, and I wish him well in his retirement. Okay, next is approval of minutes. We have the minutes from June 12th and 14th. Can I have a motion on that? Michele and Dana, any questions or comments on the minutes? Those in favor of approving them say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Any liaison reports? Any new business? All right, that brings us to the second opportunity for public comments. 15 minutes will be provided at the end of the meeting for public comments. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes. And all statements should be directed to the presiding officer.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Howard, 5 Keystone Way, West Windsor. It's 2018. I think I started these comments back in 2008 about the board not having a whole lot of transparency with communication. So I'm actually very relieved to hear that we are moving into the 21st century. I may not use Instagram, I may not use Snapchat, but anything that we can do to empower our parents and our students to have more information, I'm so glad that the board has decided to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there like a timer somewhere, or do I just have to guess the name?
It'll
How much
beep.
time I have?
Nope, I'll set you up.
Oh, I can see it right here, actually. All right, nice. Hello and good evening, School Board of West Windsor, and everyone attending today. Yesterday, I spoke at the town council meeting.
Could you give your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Could you stop the timer?
Just give your name. Come on.
Sanjeev Rajaram, 5 Rushton Court, West Windsor, New Jersey, right behind Grover. So yesterday, I spoke at our town council meeting on why it's so important to support having these Class 3 police officers in school. I, Sanjeev Rajaram, always try to be a good citizen, and I've always been a friend to the students of the school district, as I was once one of them. 2 months ago, a 2-year FBI study came out on active shooter incidents. The study showed that many active shooter incidents were either stopped by armed guards in schools or by legal gun owners who had concealed carry or other gun permits. I posted this link on West Windsor Peeps, and yes, the study is an FBI recommendation. Last night, there were some concerns of having officers in school, and I don't think this is a police overreach, but the see something, say something motto is highly important to protect against terrorism and mass murder. See something, say something has saved many lives due to early intervention and prevention. On the second point of guns in school, children are not inherently born with the fear of law enforcement or guns, but misinformation and the mainstream media paints both with a very twisted image of terror, which is not commensurate with reality. Many of the officers in this town know the citizens on a first-name basis. I can name a few right now. Officer Lantham was present last week at West Windsor-Plainsboro High School South's graduation, at where my baby sister actually graduated. Lieutenant Mark Lee, I saw him once inside Grover at night at a suicide prevention event. So, and look, I've been through this district. I graduated 8 years ago, and I know the only people who would really be scared of these officers are would-be school shooters. Studies show that they often choose soft targets, so having armed officers is a good deterrent. And I'm going to get a little personal here. I know the fear of losing a child. That's a fear that's all too real to me. I live behind Grover, and 8 years ago when I graduated, not far long after my graduation, I lost my kid cousin in my own backyard. The fear and pain was manifest to me, and it is manifest to me to this day. But I'm committed to making sure that the parents of this community don't have to go through the pain that my family went through. The things I say aren't just random statements. I make them because they're well-researched statements, and I believe they are the best ways to help protect the lives of the people. If anyone ever needs help, they can always reach out to me. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, you can get my number if you want. But I really hope everyone thanks our brave officers for their wonderful work, and thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Mark Pepper, 43 Providence Court, where I've lived for over 26 years. I've always been a big supporter of this school district. My 3 children were mostly educated in this district. My 2 oldest have gone on to have very successful careers, thanks in large part to the school district. My son is finding his way in college. I have to say today I'm really disappointed in this school board. I've supported many of you through the years. I'm appalled at the vote that you support this. What I remember growing up in was the land of the free and the brave. We now live in the land of the knee-jerk reaction and Band-Aid solutions. We don't address root causes anymore. Yes, gun violence has increased drastically. To say this is the new normal is an abomination. Nothing about this is normal. I was late because I attended the gathering at the new Muslim Center on Old Trenton Road, where they're protesting the Supreme Court that upheld the ban on Muslims in this country. That is, nothing about what's going on today is normal. Let's get that straight. And I wish maybe you didn't do enough homework. I have article after article that talks about the economic cost of gun violence in New Jersey, including a study by the Giffords Law Center. Mother Jones, from 2015. Unfortunately, the NIH is banned from doing a comprehensive study on the epidemic, the disease of gun violence. At the end of the analysis of Mother Jones, which was written in 2015, it was projected by 2017, school security systems could be a $5 billion a year industry. Another article says we can't afford gun violence in this country. Where we should be focusing our efforts is on gun violence prevention, not Band-Aid solutions. I just flew to New Orleans, where I had to undergo yet another Band-Aid solution, where I had to take my shoes off and my belt, and the guy next to me, when he took his belt off, his pants fell down. So this is what our country, this is not normal, okay? I really wish you would reconsider this effort. I will do everything I can to get the township to vote against this measure. It's foolish. It's a waste of money. The state budget may not even pass. Most of the school districts in this state are underfunded. We have the safest gun laws in this country, just about, and we have the best police force in New Jersey. They're fully capable of policing our schools and addressing any issues any incidents should they occur, which are very unlikely to happen. Thank you, Carol Herts, for your rational comments. I am really disappointed in those of you who voted yes. I will have a very hard time supporting you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniel Weiss. I live on 15 Canoe Brook Drive. I thought I'd have an opportunity to make some comments before the vote. I didn't realize you would vote before public comments for that specific item, but I don't think what I'm going to say is going to change anybody's mind.
We did have a public comment period.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I thought it was generic comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Doesn't matter, really. Sure. I have 3 children in the school system. One just graduated last week. The content and statistics that I'm about to state have been reported by the U.S. Department of Education, researchers at Northwestern University, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, Johns Hopkins Medicine, and the Washington Post. The U.S. Education Department reports that roughly 50 million children attend public school for roughly 180 days per year. Since 1999, approximately 200 public school students have been shot to death while school was in session. That means the statistical likelihood of any given public school student being killed by a gun in school on any given day since 1999 was roughly 1 in 614 million. The chance of a child being shot and killed in a public school is far lower than many people assume. It's not zero. No risk is zero. And it's far lower than almost any other mortality risk a student faces, including traveling to and from school, catching a disease while in school, or suffering a life-threatening injury playing sports. We don't need armed officers in our schools. It's unnecessary, and there's no consensus data anywhere that shows that this would provide any benefit. And I recognize that statistics can seem cold and irrelevant. Research on the psychology of risk has found that there's few risks worry us more than threats to our children. So when we hear numbers like 1 in 614 million, we think, well, my kid could be the one. So even the tiniest risk appears unacceptably high. This makes it difficult to suggest that fear of a certain risk is irrationally excessive, even when it is. And think about that. That's the thing about risk. We assess it less on the likelihood of the outcome and more on the emotional nature of the experience involved. That's why the minuscule low risk of being eaten by a shark scares millions of people out of the water. School shootings trigger powerful emotions that swamp the odds. Fear also leads us to do things in pursuit of safety that may do more harm than what we're afraid of in the first place. Think about the psychological effects on kids from all these drills about when to run and how to hide. What happens to children's ability to learn if they spend their time in the classroom wondering who's going to burst in and open fire? What does the chronic stress of such worry do to their health? What do constant messages of potential danger in a place that's supposed to be safe do to the sense of their security in the world? Fear of this extraordinarily rare risk is doing far more harm than the shootings themselves, horrendous as that they are, unfathomable. Fear should not drive policy decisions. Fear, while understandable, distracts us from greater threats and leads to behaviors that do greater harm. Having more guns in schools, regardless of who has them, increases the likelihood of gun violence. We need to have a bit more self-control over our emotions and fear if we want to keep ourselves and our kids safe and healthy. As members of the Board of Education, I would like to think that you operate in the best interest of our children. Our children are taught to make decisions based on evidence and data and sound logic, not fear. Your vote on this program will certainly be remembered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Veronica Mino, 41 Galston Drive. I have to agree with what Mr. Pepper said. This that is the new normal, that is absolutely ridiculous. The normal, we make our own normal. The fact that we are fearing and that we are increasing these things that, oh, what if this or what if that, is absolutely ridiculous when things have not been tried. For example, the security vestibule. For example, bulletproof glasses. For example, updating all our camera and security system. Just by going ahead and putting police officers, that does not mean that the risk is not there. Let's take a look at, for example, what happened in Texas. There were 2 police officers. One of them actually got wounded, and still 10 lives were taken. So please show me the proof that police officers will minimize or will absolutely have the effect that there's not going to be any school shooting. As you see, I have my 2 kids here. My daughter just wanted to come because she thought that it was Detective Jelinski. For her, she is Dave. So cool that she wanted to come and to see him again. And Matthew was like so hyper about Dave that he wanted to come and to meet him in person. So this has nothing to do with West Windsor Police Department. This has nothing to do with our police officers, because I've been talking to a lot of them, and they are absolutely the best. Having said that, my son, the first thing that he said was, if there's a police officer in school, are they going to shoot me? So these things about putting police officers' guns in elementary school is absolutely ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. We, even though the agenda leaves open a opportunity for another closed session, we finished our business earlier, so we're not going to have another closed session. So for that, I'll need a motion to adjourn. Carol and Martin. Those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you for coming out. We're adjourned.